I've shared the meeting minutes link in the chat box. So if you're present in this call, you can just comment here. I'll add your names. You can add your names to the meeting minutes. Okay, I think we can start now. So welcome to the website's call, everyone. We always begin this call by the introduction of our newest members. So is there anyone on the call who's attending the website's call for the first time? Even if you've been to any other calls before, you can feel free to introduce yourself over here. We have all the people working on the websites present here today. Abhinay, if you're speaking, we cannot hear you.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it just me? Can you guys hear him?
I can only hear you at the moment.
Yes. Once you fix the problem with your mic, I think you can just interrupt us. We can hear your introduction. Is there anyone else who's new on the call? Yeah, we still can't hear you. All right, so I've shared the meeting minutes in the chat. So everyone who's on the call, you can just add your names here. Share it once more. So surprisingly, today we don't have topics from layer5.io. We have a bunch of topics from the other websites. So we'll begin with Akshit's topic. Akshit, you want to present your screen?
My screen. Hello,
Hi.
am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are. You are audible. You cannot anymore. Okay, Akshit, you want to move forward with this?
Yeah, okay. Let me share my screen. So in the resources, the card section, I have uniform all the cards, and in the blogs card, I have uniform all the cards. Do you have any suggestions?
One thing could be on the blogs cards, the date could go to the end of the card, like not just
Okay.
date and the by. The other cards looked good. I think this looks good as well. Any other opinions?
I am thinking about like eliminating the space in the cards, in the block cards. Like we have too much space in the green section. If we are able to eliminate that space, then that would be great.
Okay.
Like we need to find some alternatives. Like we can show some text from the block here in order to like cover these spaces.
Yeah, so the problem was that the green was not uniform. Like we wanted the cards to be of uniform space, and since some of them, like only this one in middle, had more text than the rest of them. So if we want to take a shortcut, we can probably rewrite the text. I'm not sure.
Yeah, or there's a CSS style text overflow, Ellipsis. which will then just, cut off the text after when it hits the end of the allocated space. And then it'll add an ellipse. So that's another way.
Yeah, I think we discussed this in one of the previous calls, and I think it was me who pointed out that since this is like the preview of the blog, adding ellipses might just cut it off. But I think we can do it if it's like too long, like this one, like the second one, because otherwise there's too much blank space on the other cards. What do you guys think? Akshit, can you try the ellipsis method? Like if after a certain amount of words, you can add the ellipsis, dot, dot, dot.
Okay, I can add that.
Then I think would be a little better, less white space, less green space.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's always kind of a tough problem because it's like it's one of the beautiful things about a vector-based graphic, because you'll hit the same issue with images or text, where if you're trying to present a collection, unless the same person has made all of the images, they're probably not going to be the same size, same ratio, same. And even if they had, it's kind of a pain in the rump. And the same thing goes with the text. It's like, is all the same person writing the blog post? And even if they do, can they guarantee that that one blog post would have a shorter title or the same length as the rest? It's like, no way. Especially if, as you go to provide an intro, like a little bit of a preview to what's going on or to the post, is like, and so if the goal is, and so it's one of those things, it's a classical kind of trade-off situation in which you identify what the highest priority is. Like, is it mandatory to get them all the same size? All right, then you need to acknowledge that like something else has got to give at some point. Or is it mandatory to make sure that all the text is shown? And then you're like, well, at some point, not all cards might be the same size. Like you can try to refactor your images. You can try to re-wordsmith your intro. For any large collection, though, it's like at some point you just shrug and like, if you've ever used WordPress, it's there. That blog platform is a good example of, you write the post and then you also can write this. They have meta tags, or they have a section in there for like I forget what they call it, but it's kind of like a preview section where you would intentionally type in, or you would intentionally tag the first line or two as a summary of what your post is about. We don't have that here. We could create that type of a system. As if, for those of you that use Jekyll, you can go quickly create any kind of metadata like that. The thing is like, even if you have that, it's not guaranteed that the blog author is going to stick to one sentence, or that one sentence is the same length as another sentence. So again, like if you're going for card uniformity, at some point, you gotta, it's so with the images, like, oh, hey, are all the images perfectly squared up? And it's like, no, the last one, mesh mark explained, it looks like part of it's getting cut off. It's like, well, yeah, because we want it to have a uniform rectangular shape, I guess, is what we decided. And so there's a couple of things that I think can help with legibility and with making this feel a little bit better. One is there's actually a number of things. One is that see the mesh mark card, it's hard for the viewer to tell that it's a card. Why? Because there's a white background to the image. So where's the edge of the rectangular card? Well, you can't tell until you hover over that it's being treated as a rectangle. Okay, well, what can you do? Well, add an outline, drop a shadow, something like that. Either of those two will work. We should probably do that. That might be nice. If people are looking for things to do, that's a good thing to do. Another thing is to help with legibility is like uniformity really helps with legibility. An example of that is the date and the author, the January 26th by the newsroom. If that is consistently placed and located in the same position of every card, or it becomes pretty easy for your brain to scan over that and see where's the one written by Yash. That's the one that I really wanted to read. and you can find it. So a second, so there's one request, which is to make these a bit more of a card, play with an outline, play with a drop shadow or something. To place the byline, which is the author, and the date in a consistent location. So in this case, you'd probably pin that a certain amount of padding from equidistant from the left side and the bottom. Well, or the left, whatever. I guess I was looking at the date, but just from the bottom, basically left and you have equidistant margins on both sides, and then the same amount of padding or margin from the bottom. And then it becomes consistent irrespective of the length of the blog post or the length of the preview. Okay, that's the second thing. Then you come to the intro, to like the preview, and the same applies to the title. Is like, is it okay for our title to span 3 lines, 4 lines? Because we're going from 1 to 2 to 3. We have up between 1 and 3 lines. So is it okay if it goes to the 4th line? I don't know. We should probably make that decision. And is what's more important, the title getting more room or the preview? Probably the title, right? So as we go to, there's another decision to be made. It's like, okay, well, of the things that have to give, meaning of the image that gets cut off or of the text that gets cut off, I think we're deciding, hopefully, that it's the text that should get cut off. It's the image that we're trying to get. We're trying to have the similar card size, similar image. That of the text that gets cut off, do we cut the date off and the who wrote it, the byline? No, those are consistent pieces of metadata that are about the same size every time they need to stay in. So as it turns out, like what you would, and then what about if we had a 10-line title? Should we show all 10 lines? What we should probably do is add the text overflow ellipsis to the preview text and just cut it off cold after. You don't have to specify after, you just say that it has to fit within the div, and the div in the card, the div is a certain size, and it'll just get auto cut off and an auto ellipsis added, which is great because it doesn't look like a cold hard cutoff. It looks like a nice soft intentional cutoff. So for the title, if you have a 10-line title, well, you might want to also restrict the height on that or the length of that to be up to like 3 or 4 lines. And then even after that, it gets cut off so that at least a little bit of the preview can go through. So that's the third ask. Who's Axit? Is it you that's working on this?
Yes, I'm working on it.
Nice. Did all 3 of those make sense? Do you think you can?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Nice. Deborah, if you don't mind, if you hover one more time on the card. Oh, Axit, do you mind hovering on the card, please?
Sorry?
Never mind. Great. Anybody else?
In this card, we can't open the blog post by clicking on the title. I think we should have that in it. We can just open the blog if we click on the image. It's a real small change.
That makes sense to me. Yeah, the whole card, right? Like, yeah, the whole thing should just be.
Even if you don't add the whole card, at least the title should have.
Yeah, but why would you do that? Like let's talk about that though. Seriously, Yash. Like,
we can also add read more button if someone wants to add that.
Yeah, but what would be the difference? Do you mean to expand the card to be able to see more of the preview, or read more just to have a second link to do the same thing as the first link?
Yeah, like to navigate to the cards, to the blog page.
Okay.
No, easier to navigate.
Yeah.
No, and yeah, and the card image as well is Josh, if so Axit, if you can hear me, move your mouse onto the card, please, onto the green.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Now move your card onto the image, or your mouse, I mean. Jeez. Okay. Yeah. So Yash, in this case, like, what's easier to navigate. If someone moves their mouse onto the green portion of this thing, what would be their reasoning for doing that? There's a few things.
Like it will be adding the link to the title will also be easier way to navigate.
It is. True. I totally agree. Take it one more step. I don't have to be right, by the way. I don't have to be. And it's not about me being right. It's actually got nothing to do with me at all. I totally agree with you. Like the thing that you said, absolutely. It's annoying that you like go to click on this and you actually can't figure it. It's like what it's frustrating actually. I've experienced it 2 days ago here. So I totally agree with your suggestion. I would just like I so vehemently agree with your suggestion that I would further that by saying, like, hey, the whole thing is a card, right? Like, why isn't the whole thing clickable? And that's why I said Abajay has another good suggestion or aimed at the same thing, but it becomes unnecessary if you just make the card click. If you actually treat it as a card, it becomes clickable. The whole thing becomes clickable and it becomes interactive. And the indication that it is clickable comes from the preview thing. Also, to the extent that a drop shadow or some other outline is added, that also could have an effect. And so, Yash, like there's merit to the thing that you're saying about the title. And the way that you can try to objectively weigh the two suggestions, to make the whole thing clickable or just add the title as also being clickable. One way to objectively weigh that is to say, great, what's the primary? There's a few reasons why a user might hover their mouse, bring their mouse across the cards. And okay, there's a few reasons. And you'd say that as we examine those, you also want to say, what's the thing that you're trying to get them to do? Or what's the number one reason that you expect that they're doing? So the number one reason and the thing we want them to do is go read the blog post, and disagree or disagree if you don't think that that's right. Another reason they might be doing it is they might want to copy and paste the text and go put it somewhere else. So they, but more, actually before that, it would be, they might want to copy a link to that post because they're interested in it and they want to send it to somebody else. And that's something that we would want to facilitate. We would want for them to do. So that's probably number two. Number three is like, oh, they just wanted to copy the text, not necessarily the link. So maybe number three. Number four is probably just, because they're kind of reading the page and they just kind of like to read with their mouse. You know how you're kind of reading, you're kind of looking at something, you sort of put your finger on it, but you don't want to do anything. You just kind of want to like track your mouse. And sometimes you're browsing a site, you don't really want to click on anything or you're just kind of reading it, but it is kind of nice. You hover your mouse on something and it animates, you're like, okay. And you kind of keep going and it just gives it a little more. So that's like, there's like there's an actual thing to think about. Like, does it feel good? So 4 items. We walk back to the most important one of like, they want to click. Like, okay, well, how do we best facilitate the click? That's kind of the thing we revolve around. And then what we do is analyze of the answer to how we best facilitate the click. Does that negate or prevent them from sharing the article, copying the text, or getting an interactive experience? And so I'm trying to be fair because like for Abajay, I was like, look, dude, I'm not going to explain it. No, we don't need to read me. No, I'm not going to explain why. In this case, I'm going to explain the whole friggin' thing so that we never have to do it again. And so that Yash can go forth as a steward in the community, which he already does. He already reviews other blog posts or PRs, and he already gives counsel and advice. And he does it in part because of these conversations, because he takes this info forward and it's like, Abajay, allow me to instruct you in the ways in which read me is wrong. No, I'm just messing with Abajay, Anyway, maybe I'll kind of stop there because I think you can kind of walk through the rest of it to sort of say, okay, hey, how do we, if we make the whole card clickable, wait a second, does that prevent them from right clicking and getting the link? I'm not sure. It depends on how we do it. I'm not sure, so those are, but those are things to bear in mind. So. And from there, I'll be quiet so that you guys can,
So Akshat, do you have anything else to ask, or are all your doubts cleared?
Yes, I clear all my doubts and will raise a PR as soon as possible.
Guys, I've listed on some parts of it in the meeting minutes. If you want like to maintain a summary, you can write whatever we just talked about right now. So the next topic is the service mesh dashboard. So Aditya Subedi was working on this, and I recently there was an overlap issue with the footer, so I fixed that. So there are a lot of issues with the mobile responsiveness, and I think this will have a lot of UI changes as well. So anyone on the call who wants to volunteer to fix the mobile responsive issues right now, you can do so. I think he'll probably
that we need dynamic data and stuff like that. So why we are not considering React or any technology like that for the dashboard? I also asked this like in performance channel, but I didn't get any replies. So on that, so like, do we have any document related to this, like in which we are listing all the things related to dashboard?
well, document we do have. We have Pranav working on the back end of this, and Aditya and me mostly working on the front end. Jekyll mostly because this entire site is built with Jekyll, and we also have dashboards on the machinery. On like, I think on the machinery IO side, if I'm not wrong. So this is also built with Jekyll, and this is pretty dynamic.
Okay.
So I think since we want it on this site, we cannot just shift to React right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, Abhijay. Like, on one hand, they're both about as dynamic as the other. Gatsby has, I mean, there's no question that Gatsby or a React app or like Docusaurus, which is I think React based, I thought is maybe it's Hugo based or something, like is just a more capable framework than Jekyll. Like, because you can just line up the feature set and it's like, okay, yeah, this one's just more capable. They're the only reason that you might say that Gatsby is a little more dynamic because they're both just static sites. They're both literally not running anything. They're just static files. Is that GraphQL, the GraphQL being built into Gatsby helps make part of that easier, sifting through all that data and carving it up in different ways a little bit easier. Yeah, that's the one of the things that Deborah Priya just mentioned is the major drawback to using a different piece of tech for the dashboard versus for the main site is like it typically becomes really obvious to the user that this is a different site. There's a different thing, and that could be okay. You can like go to a different subdomain to a totally different. It just, and in a lot of times it usually ends up looking kind of cheap and glued together because it is. That still doesn't. That's okay. Fine. That doesn't mean that that's necessarily the hard requirement that it has to look exactly the same. It has to be this, totally and fully integrated. So you start to look at some of the other requirements of what the site should do. And yeah, I mean, the rest of the site is small enough that you might say like, You might find some Gatsby theme or some other framework theme that is very chart centric and is beautiful, and they let you kind of carve it like it would make it a lot easier to get to a dashboard. And what you might say is like, okay, hey, let's just convert the rest of the site. Let's just, whole hog move this site off of Jekyll onto the new tech, because like the rest of the site's it's like two layouts. It's the page, the main page, and a blog post layout. And it's like, it's not very difficult. It's funny because it'll actually take us a really long time, actually, because it just takes a long time in open source land like this, where people are kind of giving, 30 minutes once a week to do stuff. It takes forever. So if there is a super compelling theme or something that might save time, but we might end up wanting to convert the whole thing to this. The notion, the dynamicism, that aspect of it is there's one of the components to this site is that it will be sourcing metrics, so data for the charts from a remote REST API. And so the fact that REST API will be running behind a server, or a server will be serving that, can help with the dynamic aspect of those queries, and like the ability for a user to select certain things that they want to view and get just the right data back. And so that if that wasn't there and that was all having to be done in Jekyll itself, I think Jekyll would start to show some of its rough edges even more so. So I don't know. It's worth.
Good.
Yeah, it's worth the conversation. It's worth because this is just kind of a quick prototype. This doesn't consider for a lot of things. Of someone wants to look at the graph in a modal, they wanted to download the screenshot of the graph, they wanted to download the data behind the graph, they wanted to slice it up a few ways, they want to have 3 columns, they want to compare the graphs, they wanted to and if there's a different theme or different framework or something that has the bulk of that more difficult stuff, then it makes sense to just move the whole site to that other thing, because it's the easy stuff, the main page and the blog post, that those are super easy. And if the hard stuff is done somewhere else, maybe we should lean into that. So, I mean, there's merit to it. One of another consideration in this discussion is do we have expertise or familiarity in the community with that other framework, whatever that is? And for Gatsby, it's yeah, we do. We didn't before, but yet now we do. And you guys actually represent that. You guys have familiarity with both. And are we okay with sustaining, with do we have enough learnings there? It's yeah, we do actually have enough. So, I would say it's worth for you to spend a little bit of time trying to find something that you think might have much of what we would want for a very chart-centric, metric-centric dashboard theme or framework. And, we should think about it. We should,
Okay.
I mean, yeah, it's a good question. I mean, yeah, it's the right time to ask that kind of a question. But then as you go to evaluate it and kind of facilitate that discussion through the community, as you start to list down some of the points of how many charts are we going to show, how much history is there going to be, how many ways people need to slice it up, does anyone need to save their view, are we going to compare as you sort of go through and itemize the feature set, of which some of the things I just said is well, I don't know. We should figure that out. Does anyone need to save a view? Or actually, while we probably won't have accounts and the ability for people to save a view, another important consideration is I go on, I see a chart, I'm oh my goodness, that's terrible. That needs, I need to tell somebody about this. Let me just grab the link and I try to grab the link to that specific chart. Well, if the framework that whatever it is that we're using doesn't expose a URL that you can reference, if I can't share those specifically, that could be tough. I mean, that's a decent, I should say, I think that that's a good kind of requirement to try to track is, is a shareable links. So yeah, there will be history, right, that people want to go back through. Yeah, I mean, I would keep investigating. Like I talked to Subedi, Aditya Subedi too, I know you did. I know you brought it up in the Slack. It's that you're doing the right thing. Maybe we should. I think if we didn't have Gatsby already or something, it would be that's kind of a big hurdle. It's like, wait, what are we trying to do here? Are we trying to, when we finally moved off Jekyll on the layer 5 IO site to Gatsby, it was like, look, we're like pressing this thing up against its edges. The theme is kind of, junk. We need this thing to really sell the rest of the projects and represent all of what's been, everyone's given. And so like Nikhil was there for a long time, like we digesting this new piece of tech, doing all new designs, doing reviews, doing that, forever. And it's pretty fantastic. It gets compliments, it's, and so the reason I bring it up is like, okay, we have some of that expertise. Now the question for this is, how amazing do we want for this to be? And it's like, well, yeah, you actually always want it to be pretty great. Some of it is like, I don't know who all is going to be here working, committed to seeing it through. And that's actually part of the response that I was going to give to you in Slack was going to be, this is why I didn't answer you in Slack, is because it would have sounded like I was being kind of rude, and because it would have just been too short. It would have, my response is like, that sounds great, Abhijay, go ahead and do it. And so what I mean by that, and that's not meant to be rude. It's just like, oh, hey, we have to take a deep breath, and like, that's a bit more work. Okay. Are people committing to that? If so, let's go do it. And so that's like a good thing to chat with Subedi about as well. It's like, hey, I'm committing to, you're committing to it, or he is, or multiple people. Yeah. You can also, like, one powerful thing, by the way, just in general, one really powerful thing in discussions like this is, let's say you had found what you thought to be a pretty well-suited theme. If you go do a prototype, just in a different repo or on a branch or something, of using a different framework, you just kind of quickly took and converted the other pages, and then now you've got a few different charts and like a framework for it. It's having a prototype is really powerful in the decision-making process, or the convincing process. Is that kind of what you were expecting? Like, is that kind of, I think, yeah. I get what you mean though. Like in some respects, even if just like what the word dynamic means, or what the, like, just kind of
initially I thought like the data will be different for every user. Like we are considering the login and sign up functionalities. Like if I log in and data will be different for me, or if you just log in, data will be different for him. And like there are some checkboxes. If I click on these checkboxes, then charts will update. So in those cases, I thought like Jekyll will reload itself. So I don't know much about Jekyll right now. So that's my mistake. I will like do some research on that. So yeah.
No, and Yeah, totally. And moreover, actually, I think like if it's yeah, it's kind of a hard conversation. It's kind of hard to make statements because it's like, well, Jekyll is almost, and Gatsby in this case, is they're almost neither here nor there. When you were to ask yourself, if you check the box, would it refresh? Like you can't really answer it if all the data that you're given is like, it's a Jekyll site. If you click the box, will it refresh? It's like, I don't know, because it depends on what else you did. Did you use jQuery and did you use other stuff or not? And it's the same thing for Gatsby. It's like, what? It depends. Either way, it could do either way. It depends on, did you take, and it's like, did the theme that you get that, or did you build that in? So, I mean, I think that like, I thought that your question is well placed, because if for nothing else, you just step back and you look at the project. It's like, oh, you're trying to make something that feels pretty good. It could be dynamic. People are slicing up views and etc. That sounds kind of complex. You might want a little more powerful of a tool. Like even if that's the entire thought, it's a valid thought, because and it's like I said, it's the right time to explore the right architecture. Yeah. And so like actually, I think, well, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, and there's no, for my part, just like at this point, I think we're as equally invested in Gatsby as we are Jekyll. So like, there's no predisposition. There's no technical bigotry toward one versus the next, because so.
Yeah.
Right. So moving on to the next topic. So this was something I think we discussed in one of the previous calls, and Shubhradeep was already working on it. So basically, on the Get Nighthawk site, the navbar right now isn't visible in mobile view. But the problem is, a lot of people have tried to fix it. It is visible in the previews, like, but it isn't visible anymore. And so it's visible in the build and in the previews. So this started when people were fixing the mobile responsiveness of the navbar, but now it's gone altogether. So yeah, this started when we were trying to fix this. So I think this is a little this is something which we have to look into urgently. And Shubhradeep is looking into it, but if someone over here finds out another fix for it, you can get in touch with him or with us and let us know. So this is just something I wanted to bring up once more. Abhijay, I think you were working on this as well. So did you find anything with what is happening?
No, not yet. Like I'm facing some errors in this Get Nighthawk project. So I'll like first need to like resolve those errors. The error is related to like something time zone info. So I need to like, resolve this error. The errors came from like I'm using a different version of Ruby. That's why like I first need to resolve that error, and like first need to resolve a PR to like. In that PR, I am working on the sidebar, the sidebar of the nav. So I also, yeah, this PR.
Your site was building, right?
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah, but like it is not working right now. I need to like resolve some errors related to TZ info. Like many newcomers also facing that error. And Yash, I think, is also facing that error related to TZ info. Yash, are you able to find something to resolve that?
No, I tried a lot, but nothing seems to work.
Yeah.
Right.
What exactly? Like if it's with the Ruby version, I think there's a way to change the Ruby version. Are we?
Yeah.
It's not about the Ruby version. It's like DC. I also don't remember. It was some time.
Yeah, I didn't hear what you said. Right now.
It's not about the Ruby version. It's like one of the library or something is missing, and Ruby is not able to resolve it. So couldn't find any solution for that.
Can you open this issue in the discuss forum? I think someone who has been able to solve can help you out there.
Okay, I will do that.
All right. So the last discussion will be about the ServiceMesh catalog. So if you guys haven't seen this yet, but I think you have. So we were working on the ServiceMesh catalog, and there have been issues regarding the mobile responsiveness open for a long time. So I think on the issue right now, the person who's assigned isn't responding the last time I checked. So I'll probably tell Akshit to move forward with this. He'll probably be able to fix it. So this is what we have currently. One enhancement which any one of you can work on is the ability to filter, like to have multiple filters. Right now, as you can see, these are two different categories, but we can only visit one category at a time. Like even like suppose I go to deployment, but I want Istio, it doesn't like show me deployment and Istio. It basically visits different links and shows me different uh, like filters. So we want these to combine together. We also have WebAssembly filters, and I think there was an open issue to expand the catalog to ebpf programs. So there is a lot of work that needs to be put into this catalog. So if again, this site is on Jekyll, so anyone who's familiar and wants to work with it, you can start with working on this multiple filter. Everything is there, you just need to find out a way to like have both of these work together. Aditya Chatterjee, Meshmate Aditya, he was working on this. So if you have any questions, you can get in touch with him as well. So yeah, this is something I wanted to bring up today. Anyone right now who thinks they are interested to look into this?
I think Akshat asked to be for the issue to be assigned to him on the GitHub issue itself. Can you check this?
Yeah, Akshat asked for the mobile responsiveness. There is currently no issue open for the multiple.
Yeah, I think there is no issue related to the filters right now open in the catalog. Yeah.
There's an issue to expand the catalog to ebpf programs, but not for the multiple filter. I'll open this up once. So is anyone willing to volunteer right now? I'll open the issue anyways, so you can circle back on this one.
Yeah, and after the ebpf programs, there is OPA policies. And the thing is like you don't have to know either of those two pieces of tech to create a new category, because it's just about as simple as like adding new metadata or what have you. I mean, but it's a good excuse to go learn some of that tech. But we need this is a reminder for me to go replace some. It doesn't have to be me, but I'll do it. Is to replace some of the filler text, the lorem ipsum, with real stuff, and so.
You mean over here?
So, okay, so given that Subedi and Abene are considering it, like it's probably for one of you, it's ideal to take on the ebpf programs and the OPA policies, or just like in terms of creating those two categories, because it's kind of the same thing. You just kind of do another, but then someone else to work on the multi-select instead of the radio buttons. Maybe I wanted to look at patterns that were both of type deployment and of type traffic management potentially. Actually, I think right now, a given entry can only be of one category. So it's less about the categories and more about like, I wanted traffic management for Linkerd that are WebAssembly or something. So it's like kind of across those three sections. There would need to be those radio buttons can probably stay radio button groups, but there's three groups and they should be a additive or combinatory. Okay, that's the second issue. The third issue is, hey, there's a cute little bee and a intimidating looking helmet with horns, like the bee and the. Okay, there are SVGs of both of those, and SVGs. Both of those SVGs can be. Deborah, if you don't mind, if you go back to the catalog, if you hover over, there's two SVGs, the WebAssembly and then the patterns one. And the animation that's occurring, the CSS is already there. So you don't have to, but basically what I'm saying is when we create those two new categories, two new icons need to come up here as well. And they look like they will almost fit off to the right-hand side. Something that can probably be done is where it says Service Mesh Catalog is like, maybe it shouldn't say the Service Mesh Catalog there. Maybe that should be up top, or maybe it shouldn't say that at all. But point is, like, there's a third item of adding those two new, part of adding those categories is like the CSS that comes with adding the right color. So for the ebpf programs, the primary color that we would probably choose is probably yellow. The same yellow that is on the bee's hiney. And then I just said hiney on the live stream on YouTube. So okay, do you guys use hiney? Is that the rear end, buttocks? Okay, anyway. Sorry. Can't get hiney out of my mind. All right. OPA. We got to choose a color for OPA as well. I'm like a little kid with a hiney. Oh, sorry.
You had to go off to laugh. Nice. Okay. Okay, he's not speaking again. So, yeah. So I think those are the things we have to do. I'll make a note over here if possible. Any questions or anything else you guys want to discuss? Abhinay, if you're still here, you can go ahead with your introduction right now, because I think you weren't audible before. And anyone else on the call, if you have any other things to discuss, you can bring it up right now, or you can let us know what you're working on currently, even if there isn't anything to discuss right now.
I think I have something. Yesterday I was just checking, and the restructuring UI branch is deleted. I think it's not showing in the branch list, and yeah, when we click on the go to the link, it just says 404 not found. Is the branch deleted or?
Yeah, the branch got deleted by someone, but yeah, like I think few of the members have the copy of the branch, the upstream copy, so they'll upload it.
Thank you.
Anything else today?
So update on the, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so update on the search feature. So I'm currently working on it though. I was able to adjust the query for the GraphQL. So Nikki suggested that I should maybe make the pagination to like the resource, the one that was used in the resource page, where it's actually like paginating on the current page rather than returning a new page. So I'm trying to do that now since yes, I have actually like I've adjusted the GraphQL query, so it's returning all the data and I can index all the data. So hopefully by next website call, I should have created a PR. We should be working hopefully. So that's it.
So you're saying you'll like right now on blogs?
Yeah. No, it's not working. Like I mean, I'm working on it. I haven't created a PR yet, but then I will. So I've like Nikki suggested something on the website channel that like I should write the query and as maybe make the pagination to be happening on the page uh rather than always opening a new page whenever you try to go to the next page. So like I'm trying to factor in his suggestion and see if like it works, because right now yes I can index the whole data and make my search, but I want to figure out a way to make the pagination look like that of the resource page. So if you go to the resource page, there's way the pagination works. It's different from the one that works in the blogs page. It's different, so it doesn't really go to a different page, but in the blogs page it goes to a different page. So I'll see if I could do that as well. Then if that is done, then yes, I will make it PR.
Okay. So we'll be looking for updates in the next one. Right. Anything else for today? Alan and Elizabeth, is this your first website call, or have you been here before?
Are you talking to me?
No, I'm talking to Alan and Elizabeth. Okay, Alan has been here earlier. Cool. So anything else to discuss today? Aditya, since you're here, we were talking about the service mesh dashboard. So do you want to tell us what the next steps are over there?
Can you give me a little brief, like what we discussed?
So since I was supposed to do the overlap fixing, I've done that, and there are mobile responsiveness issues. What else needs to be done?
All right. So as we know, the test results are like in more number, like it's around 34,000 plus test results, right? And to show them in a drop-down menu is not feasible, right? Because it's showing 34,000 results like in stacked down method, that is not feasible at all. So we are thinking of like, some suggestions like how can we display all these data so that it's not too clustered, as well as it is very easier to navigate to different results. So if like anyone has any suggestions on it, that would be great. Like having it drop down to show more than 30,000 results is like, it's really a hectic job, scroll up and down.
We can implement a search field instead of a drop down, like user can search.
Yeah.
I agree.
So the thing is, to implement a search field, the test ID we have is like a complex thing with alphanumeric test ID, right? So I don't think a user can search the specific test ID. That was.
But if that field is that complex, shouldn't there be a place where we enter it exactly? Because if like even scrolling through this will be a problem.
Yeah, like we are yeah, that's what I was asking, like to have an alternative of the drop down thing also.
So basically, the drop down will render different performance graphs, right?
Yeah, different performance tests that we bring from it. So after a user clicks up a particular performance tags, he will be shown the performance graph and different metrics that that allows us to see.
So we could either have latest 5 results if there are 5 for a particular service mesh instead of having a dynamic result. Because if you add all the data, then it will only grow exponentially with time, and there won't be a fixed data to add it.
So like 5 data, then like about the rest data.
Like 5 is just a number. It could be any other number as well. I'm just guessing it as 5 or some other number which is visible for each service mesh which is there. If there is at all a test which is being run using that service mesh. The latest 5, for example.
So that's the
That
latest
5 can be an
yeah.
X.
Another thing which we can do is once we display the latest 5, suppose in the end we could have a button or something to open a dialog, and over there in a tabular form, probably we can have the rest of the result. Probably.
The
Like,
rest, you mean all the rest? But if you try to fetch all the data, it will take a lot of time. See, because as of now, there are already 34,000 tests, yeah. And by the time the dashboard gets completed, it might cross 40,000. So it will again take a lot of time. And even if it gets completed 40 with time, it will only increase. So loading that many data doesn't make sense. It will even like make the site heavier as well. Even if not the whole site, the page respectively. So that would cause an issue. My suggestion is to use a fixed number to load the fixed number of graphs. But yeah, let's see what others suggest. We could take the cumulative approach.
Like, do we have any sets of these tests or data? Like, we can divide these into sets, and like we can make multiple filters on that. Like, if someone wants related to data related to like some set of tests, then he can like filter on those tests. Like, we can make, for example, if we have 30,000 tests and those tests are divided into like different forms, then we can like divide into like 10,000, 10,000, 10,000. Like, we can filter like that, if that's possible.
So the test results, like as you said, we have 3 performance profiles, like as mentioned. Like the test results can be run through SOAK, Burst, or JWT, and inside that we have the service mesh which the user can choose. So there will be some like a way to differentiate between the tests, but still I don't think that will be enough to reduce the number. But yeah, that can be the numbers could be reduced, but not to a great extent. I think I've not actually seen the like actual details, like actual metrics or actual numbers of tests that each service mesh or performance profile has, but I don't. Yeah, that was what I was saying. So maybe we can do that, like display a certain number of tests, if at all that a particular performance profiles and the service mesh combined has that number of tests. And we can think of like other ways to displaying. If the user wants to display, like wants to see more results, we can think of some other way to provide them that results.
If the user wants to see more results, we could recommend him to check out Mesh UI.
Mesh UI?
Yeah, the mesh reload. Like he could directly install mesh locally and run a performance test himself.
Yeah.
Because anyways, there are a lot of values. Even if we only consider the response time, there is a drop down of 10 values, which starts from 10 seconds to goes up to 3 minutes or 5 minutes. So even if you filter based on the response time or the number of counts or any other data, it will still be a very huge database. So having that many filters and fetching all the results doesn't make sense to me. Might be a good question to ask on the mesh dev call or the community call as well.
Yeah. All right. Okay. That's it. Devapriya, you're mute.
So just saying thank you all for joining. See you all next week. Bye bye.
You all.